Oh, what's up, man?
Dude, I think I tied one on a bit too hard last night.
Really?
Oh,
that's fucking communist talk.
Dude, it was like full-on Midsummer's Night's Dream, man. They made an ass out of me.
Oh. Dude, that's bad. Oh. Hey, you're in good company, though. I've probably done worse.
Oh, yeah? Like what?
I mean, did you ever hear the story about the time that I thought Mike turned into a dog?
What?
Yeah. So back when I was 18, I was a thoroughly disreputable character. I'd been kicked out of high school, I'd finished my independent study early, and I was working full-time doing manual labor. And since I lived with my parents, I had no expenses, and all of that money went directly to two things: alcohol and LSD. So one weekend after work, I decided that I was going to spend my hard-earned cash on a large bag of acid sugar cubes and a bottle of whiskey and see where the weekend took me. 4 hits and a bottle in, and I was ready to roll. Eventually I made it to Mike's, since he had given me an open invitation that anytime I was too wasted, I could just come see him. I don't know how I made it there, considering I'd already cashed the 5th, but he gave me his usual warm welcome. Of course, after hugging me, he could immediately smell that I'd already seriously tied one on, and he had a new necklace, which I liked, apparently a gift from his lady friend, who was odd. But hey, I figured, it's all good, gonna be where my weekend goes. So I sat down, and we kept doing what they had been doing, which bluntly was some weird-ass occult shit. Now, I didn't really understand the whole thing, something about how the animal inside of all of us connects to the classic mythological concept of the demon, and how it leaves traces on the human body in the form of hand lines and head bumps, and it wasn't any kind of palmistry that I'd ever run into, but I figured, hey, you know, Mike's happy, she's cute, whatever. I've got no beef. I closed my eyes for a while. When I opened my eyes, things had changed considerably. There was some kind of dog ritual circle, and sitting right smack in the middle of it was Mike. And he didn't look like himself at all. And this chick was just walking around him doing something with a staff, like something that Gandalf would carry around with a head carved into the end of it. And she just kept chanting, and there were all these voices, and everything seemed to be shaking and twisting and morphing. And I know I was on acid, but I was utterly convinced that she was doing something. She was doing something to Mike, because he did not look right. He looked like he was being possessed by something, almost like he was being changed into an inhuman form. And the more that I watched this, the less okay I became with it, until eventually I realized that I just wanted it all to go away, and I closed my eyes again. I didn't reopen them till the next morning when, miserable and hungover, I woke up and called for Mike. No answer. So I screamed again. Still no answer. I decided to find his punk ass. But when I walked into his bedroom, I was confronted by a confusing sight. No Mike. Huh. Well, I figured he's wasted, he could have passed out anywhere. But the more that I look, the more confused I became. No Mike anywhere to be found. Where the fuck was Mike? No clues were to be had until I walked into one of the guest bedrooms and was confronted by another piece of completely, utterly baffling data. There was a dog there. Never seen it before, but around its fucking neck was Mike's new necklace. And that's when I suddenly knew. That fucking witch bitch had turned Mike into a dog. It couldn't be true. I had to find him. Frantically, I tore through the house looking for any sign of his presence. He's not in the bathtub. He's not in the garage. He's not in the kitchen. Everywhere I looked, the thought kept plaguing me. He's got to be somewhere. This can't be real. He can't have actually been turned into some kind of animal. Magic's not real, right? But even as I reminded myself of the rationality of that position, I somehow knew in the base of my gut what had happened. Of course, I was wrong. Mike was calmly asleep the whole time. Having not found him anywhere, I freaked out, and I knew that I had to come up with some kind of a plan. There had to be some recourse, someone I could call for help to try and solve this situation. And in my drug-addled, hungover mind, I realized there was only one possibility. I was going to have to sit and call the cops. Of course, this was a risk because at the time I was on multiple kinds of probation, and calling the police was generally not something you want to do when you were carrying a large quantity of psychedelics. However, it was worth it for my friend. I was gonna make it. And as I dialed those fateful numbers, I prayed to the only gods I knew that please, the cops would not take me to jail. Of course, as soon as the operator got on the line and I started to stammer out my story, I realized just how stupid and fucked I was, and that I needed to get the hell off of that phone call. Of course, giving up on the cops meant that the other option was my only option. I had to accept what had happened. Mike had been changed, and I was going to have to learn to live with what had happened to my friend. He'd really become a beautiful dog. And I realized that, despite my loss, one of my best friends had truly become man's best friend. And that could be okay. Whatever adventures he would go on from that day forward, I would be there for him in every way I could, feeding him and grooming him and giving him a warm place to sleep. It was sad, but it could work. Of course, Mike picked this moment when I was feeling all maudlin and shitty to actually wake up and ask me what the fuck I was doing crying on his couch. I was understandably shocked, and after demanding to know where he was and him giving me an explanation, I somewhat confusedly explained my delusion that he had been turned into a dog. Now, Mike was equally confused by this and told me that I was a complete jackass. I guess the moral of the entire story is, make sure that you're ready to roll with the punches. Maybe binging on acid isn't the best.